Well, hi there. I'm here today with one of the most reasonable and awesome looking monitors in the entire world, and that is the Blue Spot Timor Monitor. Monitors in general are just so stinking rad, it's unbelievable. They are, in many areas, the apex predators, though that is probably not the case for the Timor Monitor. They're active predators. They're out hunting, chasing things down. Unlike most lizards, they can run and breathe at the same time because they can force air down into their lungs using their throat. They have just the most amazing super dinosaur builds you can possibly imagine. But most of them make pretty darn unreasonable pets. Reasonable compared to a tiger, but unreasonable for a reptile. It is such a beautiful lizard. Unfortunately, they usually actually kind of lose the blue spots as they grow older, but in a lot of ways, these guys look like really small Nile monitors. And Nile monitors are like the coolest looking monitors in the world. They're absolutely terrible pets, but they're super cool looking. And these guys have a very similar look. At the same time, they're kind of a tree monitor, and they've got a little bit that arboreal tree monitor build, which makes them look a little bit like the tree monitors, which are also arguably the coolest looking of the monitors. They just kind of got like all the awesome monitorness that you could possibly have all wrapped up into one package and then shrunken down into a reasonable size. There's a lot to love about Timor monitors. And of the monitors, the Ackie monitor, which we've already talked about before and which I will continue to talk about all the time because it is one of my absolute dream lizards, might be the best possible pet monitor, but it still has some drawbacks. For one thing, Ackies are very expensive. Not ridiculous, but they're several $100s. Ackies also don't have that typical monitor body shape. Not exactly. I mean, they're still shaped basically like monitors, but they've got this kind of wide, spiky tail, which is totally awesome in its own right, but it kind of ruins that tiny Komodo dragon body shape that most monitors smaller than Komodo dragons have. But the thing about Ackies is that their size and their personality is just amazing. It's just perfect for a monitor lizard. That said, there is another monitor lizard that is basically the same size as an Ackie monitor, and yet it has that quintessential monitor body shape. And that is the Timor Monitor. And therefore the question becomes, is the Timor Monitor the best pet lizard, the best pet monitor for you? Overall, we give the Blue Spot Timor Monitor a score of 3.2 out of 5, which, for a monitor lizard, is a pretty spectacular score. And that score comes down to our 5 categories, which hopefully will help you figure out if the Blue Spot Timor Monitor is the right pet lizard for you. And those categories are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. When it comes to handleability, we give the Blue Spot Timor Monitor a score of 2 out of 5. In a lot of ways, the Blue Spot Timor Monitor is excellent for handling. They're a really great size for handling. This particular Blue Spot Timor Monitor comes to us from Great Basin Serpentarium, who is a breeder of a lot, probably one of the widest diversities of reptiles of any breeder I've ever seen, and they really have had a lot of success breeding monitors. Monitors are notoriously difficult to breed, and they produce captive bred Blue Spot Timor monitors, and this one is a juvenile, so it's getting bigger, but it's not quite full size. But they don't get a heck of a lot bigger than this either. And this size is actually really good for handling when it comes to a monitor. They're big enough that they're not super fragile, that you're not going to easily injure them. They're also small enough that they're not going to easily injure you. And monitors are well equipped to injure you. For starters, monitors have got some great teeth. You know, even though this monitor is a small lizard, I'm still really trying my best not to be bitten today, because they'll cut you up and their mouths tend to be pretty dirty. They've also got claws. This is an arboreal monitor, and as is the case with most monitors, especially arboreal monitors, their claws will shred you. And these claws hurt, and they leave little cuts, but I'm not bleeding anywhere, and that's a big difference between these guys and larger monitors. And something just absolutely wonderful about monitors generally is that they can't drop their tail. I love that. That is one of the best things that could possibly be an attribute of a lizard, and that's an attribute of monitor lizards, is that they don't drop their tails. Lovely. They also are less likely to use this tail as a weapon than our larger monitors, because this isn't going to hurt when you start talking about bigger monitors, so they can really hurt you with that tail. I've taken some whips to the face that are just dreadful. Like a lot of monitors, especially tree monitors, this tail of theirs is at least semi-prehensile, and they definitely use it to anchor themselves at times, and prehensile tails just make me happy. And monitors also have a long, flexible neck. So I said that bite can be pretty bad. Well, they're also very good at wheeling around and grabbing you, which is something that, you know, lizards like a tegu, they can't really do that. These guys are almost like a snake in the way that they can just curve around and grab you, but their bite is a lot worse than a snake bite. All that said, you know, this is as good to handle as far as size goes as a monitor can possibly be. The big problem with them is that they're nervous and flighty. They do not like to be handled. And if you force handling on a regular basis, what you're going to find is that your monitor is going to hide from you on a regular basis. And so you're not going to see it very much at all. That said, if handling isn't a big deal for you, you know, these can be a very interactive pet. You can have a great relationship with them, feed them, observe them relatively often in their enclosure. However, if handling is important to you, just right there, you're probably going to want to look into an Ackie monitor instead of a Timor monitor. And if handling is really important to you, you might want to look into something like a bearded dragon, which is better to handle than really any monitor lizard. When it comes to care, we give the Blue Spot Timor monitor a score of 4 out of 5. It's actually relatively simple to care for a monitor lizard. The enclosure that they're going to need is large, but ouch, there's the handling in those claws. Awful. Large, but not ridiculously large. Monitors in general are very active, and so they're going to go around and they're going to explore a lot. This monitor being a semi-arboreal monitor, it's going to need a lot of height to that enclosure as well as width and places to climb. These things are all very important, but something that's key with these guys is you can probably buy an adequate enclosure for these, whereas for a lot of your larger monitors, you're going to have to build something or have something built, and it might take up a good chunk of your house. Given that they like to climb, like we already said, vertical space is important for them, and you're going to need things upon which they can climb, like branches. Cork rounds are really terrific because not only do they give something upon which the monitor can climb, but also something within which the monitor can hide. And these, being a relatively shy monitor, are going to do a lot better if they have opportunities to hide like that. They're going to need a substrate which holds humidity. These guys need a little bit more humidity than do the desert monitors like the Ackie. It's also probably going to be beneficial for them to be able to dig into that substrate somewhat and have it hold its shape and not collapse on them. Lighting is going to be really important for these guys. They're going to need heat lamps, and they need it hot. Not quite as hot as an Ackie, but still pretty hot. And yet they've got to have refuges, areas in the enclosure where they can get away from that heat. So make sure you've got a temperature gradient. On top of the basking heat lights, you're also going to need the UVB ultraviolet lights. Those are going to be really important for the development of your Timor monitor as well. For a lizard their size, these guys are going to eat a lot of insect feeders and some small vertebrate prey you can offer as well. But monitors are active and they eat a lot, and so for their size they eat a lot, though compared to larger monitors, it's nothing. They're also going to need constant access to clean water, so make sure that's always available. And make sure when you do feed them that you're dusting those insect feeders with calcium and vitamin supplements on a regular basis as well. When it comes to hardiness, we give the Blue Spot Timor monitor a score of 4 out of 5. A large percentage of them that you will see are imports, and we have a whole video about the issues that come along with imports versus captive bred, and that completely holds true with Timor monitors. That said, captive bred individuals, like those that you can get from Great Basin Serpentarium, they should do really well, especially if they're well established before you get them. Just make sure you've got a proper heat gradient, that they can get hot enough and that they can get out of the heat. Make sure that they stay properly hydrated and that they have UVB, and really they should thrive for you, given just proper care. When it comes to availability, we give the Blue Spot Timor Monitor a score of 3 out of 5. Imports are widely available, and we've already mentioned that they have some issues. And you can find these at expos, you can find them online, you can find them sometimes at pet stores. You know, they're not difficult to find. If you want a captive bred individual, you're probably going to need to go straight to a breeder. Monitors are difficult to breed, so breeders don't tend to have a challenge selling all of them that they can produce. That's why I recommend places like Great Basin Serpentarium or other quality breeders of Timor monitors. That's going to be the place you're going to want to go to get one. When it comes to upfront costs, we give the Timor Monitor a score of 3 out of 5. The monitor itself is pretty expensive, usually a little bit less expensive than an Ackie, but still probably in the neighborhood of about $200, give or take. Just kind of depends on the time. They will be cheaper if you get one as an import, but I mean, you might make up for a lot of your savings in vet bills, and especially if you lose the lizard, the way to go is definitely captive bred. The enclosure is going to be a bargain for a monitor enclosure, but it's still a pretty big enclosure, and it's going to be, well, not ridiculously expensive. It's not cheap either. The lights are also going to be fairly expensive to buy, but not insane, because the monitor's not big. You don't need a ton of them, but you do need them. You're going to need to buy branches, cork bark, water bowl, substrate that holds humidity, these sorts of things. Everything for these guys is going to be moderately expensive, but for a monitor, these guys are a total bargain. You know, and I'm talking compared to the cheap monitors like Savannah monitors and Nile monitors, this is a steal. And they'll probably never try to kill you. So there's a perk on top of that. We've got full videos on both the Nile monitor and Savannah monitor. We'll add them to our playlist of monitors in case you want to see what I'm talking about there. But these bargain monitors will cost you a fortune if you want to do anything but watch them die. And for these reasons, we give the Blue Spot Timor Monitor a score of 3.2 out of 5. Of the monitors that are at all reasonable for most people to keep, the Blue Spot Timor Monitor might be the coolest looking. If they weren't so shy, they would be monitor perfection. But they are so shy, which makes them kind of poor for handling and poor for display. In my opinion, this is one of the best pet monitors you could possibly get, but it's like miles behind the Ackie. But if you're into looks over functionality, then the Blue Spot Timor Monitor might absolutely be the perfect pet monitor for you. As always, like and subscribe. Oh, I wanted to mention something that we have for our patrons at Patreon, which is that every week when we film, we do a little section called Lens, where we give a cool little video preview of some of the animals we're working with that week to our patrons at Patreon. Just to tell you, this is one of the coolest lizards in the world, and it is arguably the lamest lizard I'm working with today. And our patrons at Patreon have already seen some of the crazy other lizards that we worked with today because they get this little preview. And it's just one of the things that we do to say thank you to our patrons for all that they do for us. As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon. Did we do a sound check?
We did not do a sound check. And it is not plugged in.
Cool.
That sucks.
The entire Blue Spot Timor Monitor video, take 2. I'm just going to tell you about an experience we had. This is a Blue Spot Timor Monitor. We just filmed the entire Blue Spot Timor Monitor video. And then we realized that our microphone wasn't plugged in. Jason, how do you feel about this experience?
I'm not happy.
Let me tell you, the first take was amazing. So if this video sucks, it's all Jason's fault. That's all I can say. Right?
That is correct.
Whose job is it to plug in the microphone?
I had one job! One job!
All right. Timor Monitor, take 2 of 3.2. Whoa. Ouch. Oh, so much pain. They don't do very well for our first category, which is handleability.